Last night, we brought you the story of the plight of Cuban migrants at the Immigration Detention Centre. On tonight's Reporters Roundtable, we sit down with Cayman 27's Caroline James, who covered the story yesterday. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
No problem.
Now, what can you, for the people that are just tuning in or not familiar with the story, what exactly happened yesterday?
So I was down at the Immigration Detention Centre where there's currently 8 Cubans being held. Half of them are on hunger strike. It sort of brought our attention back to the issue because the group were actually picked up in, on the BRAC in September, so they've been going for some time. Then obviously a couple of weeks ago they decided that they weren't getting sufficient attention, so they launched a hunger strike, and that's kind of brought everyone's attention back to the issue. So I was talking to the migrants through the fence yesterday. Obviously you're unable to go through into the detention centre to meet with them personally, and they're very conscious that they feel like they're not being listened to. They're frustrated. They feel like their human rights are being violated. Their right to communication, they said they were concerned about. They also feel like that the language barrier isn't being properly addressed, and they're not getting access to lawyers. So we put some of those allegations to the Department of Immigration to give them their say on the issue, and we're still waiting to hear back from them on that issue. But the department has made clear from the beginning that they've been monitoring the situation, monitoring the health of those migrants, because obviously if you're not eating anything and you're refusing water as well, it's a big concern for those agencies involved.
Now, this isn't obviously the first time that we've had to deal with, the Cuban migrant issue. This has been going on for years and years. Is there any type of resolution? What is immigration working on? What is the government working on to help, to help keep this under control?
It's a really good question, Kafara, because 2 of the migrants that are currently there said they'd been held at the detention centre before, so they'd come back, and their asylum claims are being processed at the moment. But there was it was very difficult not to be moved by their plight because they were so frustrated at the speed of the asylum process. And obviously, when you come in and you're pleading as a refugee, you've got to make sure that the proper protocols are followed. But at the same time, these people they kept saying they felt there was no help, no lawyers, no answers, they kept saying.
Now, has anyone in a community been able to reach out to them or anything like that? Is it just, they're just there? I mean, is there any way anyone else can get in to speak to them or reach out to them?
Well, they are actually allowed visitors, Kafara, so it's a really good question. And while I was there the day before, on Wednesday, Tuesday even, there was a representative from one of the churches who'd come, and he'd sat down and he brought his Bible and he was just praying with the migrants. And it was it was a sort of gesture to let them know, there are people who care. We might not be the people that can sort of bust them out and get them asylum here, but there are people who are hearing their story, and certainly other media organisations as well have been there listening to what the Cubans have to say.
Now, what's the next step in all of this? I mean, you said we're still waiting to hear back from immigration and any kind of resolution, but what's the next step? I mean, you can't go on a hunger strike essentially forever without, dire consequences.
Exactly, and the last time that a group of migrants, I should say, staged a hunger strike, it was actually effective because the department decided it was a better situation if they could release the migrants into the community and monitor them with sort of GPS and electronic tags, rather than keeping them, essentially in a prison environment, which is, restrictive in many ways. I should make clear as well that they're not, chained up like prisoners of old. They have access to cell phones, and they were able on one occasion to come and talk to me quite freely without any issues. So they're not. I don't think there's any question of them being sort of detained unfairly. It's just whether this situation is the best way to keep the group together whilst their asylum claim is being debated.
Now, with this, obviously, this is an ongoing issue, and like I said, it's been going on for a long time, but is there any one solution? I mean, what do you feel like that actually can be done so we can help resolve this, so we have actual things in place to say, all right, you've come here, this is exactly what would happen to you, instead of the constant, the waiting and just all the uncertainty, while you wait for your asylum,
That's right.
application to go in.
Yeah, and I think the language barrier as well is a real problem, because there were 1 or 2 that I was able to kind of make myself understood. I don't speak Spanish, and the lady who was in my report, Corelia, she came back the next day with her dictionary, and she was looking up words and kept saying them in English and pointing out the words to me in the dictionary. So I think the lack of being able to communicate with the people that were stationed at the centre, the lack of being able to express really what the problem is and what they're concerned about, and the lack of understanding of the legal process, because it is a complicated issue. I think that all, you know, comes together to just create this feeling of uncertainty for them.
Now, has the Human Rights Commission weighed in at all on this or anything like that? You did mention, you know, the conditions that you saw, they were, you know, being treated very humanely, but what about the Human Rights Commission where this is concerned?
Again, that's another organisation that we've reached out to, Kafara, to find out that they've made clear in the past that there's, again, a procedure to be followed to get them to sort of intervene or look into a case that requires sort of forms to be sent, and I believe those forms are available at the detention centre. But while I was there, the migrants were trying to get me to take letters to the Human Rights Commission, and again, there was a debate with the wardens about, you know, that those letters had to go through the immigration department.
Protocol, the right protocol.
Exactly. So while we're talking about following procedure, I think that there was definitely a sense of frustration, particularly from those who'd been there for an extended period of time, that people were just not able to help them. And as I say, that frustration was definitely boiling over the past couple of days.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for the update. We have run out of time, but of course, this is a story that you will continue to keep on following over the next coming days.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Well, we'll have more Cayman 27 news coming up next. Stay with us.